For the past 2 weeks, I wore the brand new Fitbit Air alongside the top of the line Whoop MG, but I also wore two other devices, the Amazfit Helio and the Polar Loop, which I suspect most people have never even heard of. And I did everything you could do with the fitness tracker, from working out, sleeping, traveling internationally, drinking alcohol, staying out late, shifting time zones, literally anything that you would be doing that you would want these to track. I pushed them to the absolute limits. And in this video, we're gonna see which one actually performed the best. And to be honest, I think the results are really going to be surprising to a lot of people. I did not expect these results. I always assumed, Whoop is more expensive. They put a lot of effort into this. I thought they would just be better across the board. And truthfully, you're gonna see quite a big discrepancy between all these different devices, depending on what it is you're trying to do and what you prioritize. This is not going to be some half-assed spec sheet comparison. I really wore these and tested these heavily for the past 2 weeks, walking around like an absolute psychopath, wearing multiple devices on each wrist in the name of science. So let's start off introducing the products and talking about the price. The Polar Loop 2, $99, no subscription required. The Amazfit Helio, $99, no subscription required. The Fitbit Air, $99, no subscription required. Optional, $99 per year subscription. I think most people don't need that though. And then the Whoop MG, mandatory subscription, starting at $199 per year for the Whoop 5, and then it goes up to $239 per year, and for the top of the line, which I'm using right here, $359 per year. If you stop paying that, you just have a bracelet that doesn't do anything. Now, this is very expensive, which is why the market has started coming out with these other products, is why the Fitbit Air even launched, and honestly, why it's going really viral. People are excited to see these alternatives that are $99 and you get all of your data without having to pay a subscription. Now, before we get into probably my favorite category being the heart rate testing, I have some awesome charts to share, but let's start off with the comfort and the design of these. I wore all of these, like I said, for 2 weeks straight, and I learned a lot about the comfort and the design. And of course, the whole point of a screenless fitness tracker is that they're lightweight, they're very comfortable to sleep in, you really forget they're even there. You can wear maybe an analog watch on your other wrist and style it a little differently, and these all do that just well. Although I will say the way you put them on is quite different. I appreciate the Whoop setup here, where you kind of fold the clasp back, put it on, and then clamp it down. You can wear this tight, you can wear it loose, it doesn't move around much. I think this is an excellent design, but you can also wear it in a number of other ways. This is the most flexible of all of these, where you can wear it on a bicep band, and Whoop even has clothing that you can embed this in. Underwear, sports bras, there's a number of different things for different ways you can wear the Whoop. Then we have the Fitbit Air, which if you're only wearing it on your wrist, it's not my favorite way to put it on. It is a little bit tricky to put this on and then you slide it down and then you kind of feed the Velcro strap around. There's different strap options. This is my favorite strap though. But once you get it on, this one is the most comfortable. It's the thinnest, it's the lightest, it's easy to forget it's there. I tend to wear all my fitness trackers a little bit looser than most people. I just don't want to clamp down on my wrist, but it still has a good fit and they're always very accurate. But the Fitbit Air, because it's smaller and thinner, you do have to wear it slightly tighter because it could have a tendency to kind of twist around and move a little bit more than the other ones. Still, definitely the most comfortable in my opinion. The Amazfit does feel the cheapest. I appreciate the combination of stretch and non-stretch in the band, but looking at it, just a basic Velcro strap. You can also wear this on a bicep band if you go and buy that. And looking at the back, you can actually swap out this band with a number of other just basic watch straps. It looks like a 20mm connector, which is very common. You can buy those on Amazon for a couple dollars. And then Polar, I would argue, looks and feels the most premium and the nicest out of all of these. There are several different colors you can buy. I really like this kind of copper tone on there, a nice accent that isn't overdone, and I think a lot of people would enjoy this. But after 2 weeks, the strap did fray. You'll see in the box, fortunately, it comes with two different sizes, small, medium, and medium large. But the strap, I wasn't doing anything too intense. This just kind of wore down on the edges. So I would imagine wearing this for several months or even a year, you're gonna really have to replace this fairly often. Now, the Fitbit Air does not have the option to wear on a bicep band. I believe all the other ones do, although I never bought and tested one for the Polar. And as far as how these charge, this is actually another win for the Whoop in my opinion, where you can charge it using this little backpack thing. So this is a battery, you charge this up by USB Type-C, you slide it onto your Whoop, and then it charges while you're wearing it. That way, you never have to take it off, you don't lose data. And this is, some people might say, whatever, you want to take it off anyway and charge it with this, that's fine, but you just have a little bit more flexibility. Then for the Amazfit Helio, you have this little puck that magnetically snaps on the back and you plug in with USB Type-C. The same general idea as most other Amazfit watches, although this is slightly smaller, so it's not going to be the exact same charger. Nonetheless, this is a really solid option, and I like that when you're traveling, you don't need extra cables with you. You just need this little puck adapter. The Fitbit and the Polar both have a similar charging style, but I prefer Fitbits over Polar because the charger is a little bit larger, a little bit more distinct, so it magnetically snaps on the back. It's a fairly long USB Type-C cable. And the reason I like this better than the Polar charger is because the Polar charger just basically has like 4 little magnetic nodes at the end of a black cable. So it's a lot easier to mix this up with other USB Type-C cables. And honestly, it's easier to lose it. That's a very small complaint though. Oh, and one more note about the straps. The Whoop absolutely takes the longest to dry. Swimming with all of these, I found is really annoying how long it took. Like it was orders of magnitude longer for the Whoop to actually dry. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. Full disclaimer here, this video is not sponsored. No brands have any input on this video. Nobody sees this video before it goes live, and I don't owe anything to any of these brands. Talking about which ones I purchased and which ones were given to me, starting off, the Whoop was given to me a fairly long time ago, so I've been testing and wearing it for quite a few months now. The Fitbit Air was sent to me on loan from Google so I could test it ahead of launch, but I will have to send this back. The Amazfit Helio, I purchased this with my own money for $99. And the Polar Loop 2, I also purchased this with my own money for $99. Now, getting into probably my favorite chart out of all of this video, this is the heart rate tracking. Now, for most of the testing, aside from heart rate tracking, I did wear all of these at the same time. Step tracking, things like that, they're not influenced by that. But for heart rate tracking, wearing 2 devices on the same wrist, because they're using little LEDs that shine into your skin to detect your heart rate, wearing 2 of them on the same wrist could influence each one and make them less accurate. So I did 2 tests with 1 on each wrist. So I did the same workout twice, essentially. I had a known accurate ECG heart rate strap on, and we're gonna see how these performed. Now, in my original review of the Fitbit Air did an excellent job. It was incredibly accurate on a steady state run. And I suspect most of these would actually be quite good on that, but I wanted to see how these reacted in a much tougher environment, doing intervals. Think about if you're playing basketball or any other sport you might be doing where you're not going at a constant pace the entire time. That's really difficult for fitness trackers to track. So I did progressively longer intervals to see how these reacted. And I did this in 2 rounds, like I said. So the first round, I had the Fitbit Air and the Whoop strap. And looking at these side by side, the red is the known accurate. That's the ECG strap. You can ignore this little jump right here. I can explain it if you guys want. That's not an inaccuracy. But you can see in the beginning, they kind of were taking a second to figure it out. The first bump, they both got it relatively right. The Whoop was definitely a little bit slower to get that. Whoop got the bottom right, but Fitbit didn't get the bottom right. The second one was fairly accurate for both of them, but it's fairly common for optical heart rate sensors on your wrist to be lagging a little bit and miss the tops and bottoms on these faster intervals. So this is not really concerning to me, to be honest. That's fairly common. It's not until we get over here that we start to see some pretty significant problems with the Fitbit Air. I don't know what was happening here, but it just wasn't able to really detect the low on this. I was walking between these 2 intervals. The Whoop did a much better job of that. And then again, over here, the Fitbit again kind of lagged and struggled with that, whereas the Whoop got that very accurate. And to compare these, we'll be using R and R squared values to essentially match how similar they are to the reference line. And you can see the goal here is going to be to get 1.00. That's a perfect match. And the Fitbit Air was 0.732 for the R value and 53 for the R squared, and then 87 and 76 showing that the Whoop was more accurate in heart rate tracking in this one. Now looking at the next 2 straps, the Polar Loop 2 and the Amazfit Helio, this is wildly interesting to me. So in the beginning, the Amazfit was actually really lockstep. In fact, not just the beginning, the entire time you can see the blue line, not the teal one, the more blue line was very accurate. It did miss this low right here, but otherwise it hit every high and every low almost perfectly going through. The Amazfit Helio nailed this bottom right here. You can ignore this little blip right here, but it really hit the top perfectly, and then it came down with only a slight lag right there, otherwise matching nearly perfectly. This was by far the most impressive of all 4 of these straps, which I did not expect, and I was very impressed by, with an R value of 0.939 and an R squared of 88. I think that is very, very impressive for intervals like this. Now, unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the Polar Loop 2, which actually I believe was the most inaccurate. It was the most inaccurate out of all of these, where it really just struggled. It missed the high, it missed the low, it was kind of offset a little bit, it really held the high for too long here. like it was just missing everything all the way across, just really lagging. And then here is probably the biggest offender where it was really slow to come back down in heart rate. So I'm not sure what was going on there. It's very unfortunate. I thought that really had a lot of potential because Polar makes a lot of really advanced running watches, and the heart rate sensor in the back looks like a very impressive array. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. But based on that testing, in first place, without a doubt, was the Amazfit Helio. Now, this is not a perfect comparison because they weren't worn on the exact same workout. It was the same duration, the same distance, and the same time for each interval. But I think in second place, we have to say that Whoop did a very good job here. Fitbit was behind, and Polar was definitely in last place there. But I would suspect, like I said, on a steady state run, they probably all do a pretty good job. And then we get into step tracking. I wore all 4 of these and walked 1,000 steps. And in last place, the Polar was 6% off, tracking 942 steps. Then we have a 2.5% error with the Amazfit tracking 976 steps. The Whoop tracked 984, so fairly close, only 2% off there. And then in first place here was actually the Fitbit tracking 994, which is unsurprising. The Pixel watches and the Fitbits have always been very good at tracking steps, but there was that's not the whole story as far as step tracking. So every morning I would check when I woke up, how many steps I had. I don't walk in my sleep. I don't get up at night at all. And so the Fitbit, like yesterday morning, for example, I woke up with 80 steps. The Amazfit, I woke up with 20 steps. The Whoop, very accurately, I woke up with 14 steps. That's definitely the closest. And Polar gave me 24 steps to start with. So all of those are just phantom steps, kind of indicating that throughout the day, the Fitbit, in my opinion, is most likely to miscount the most steps when you're not actually walking. And then looking at a full day of walking, yesterday, the Polar had 10,292 steps, which is the most out of all of these. The fewest was Amazfit at 6,090 steps. It's a huge discrepancy there. And the Whoop was almost tied with the highest at 10,017 steps. And then almost exactly in the middle of that was the Fitbit at 8,173. Across multiple days, Whoop consistently had the most or near the most. Fitbit was consistently in the middle, and Amazfit did seem to undercount my steps fairly consistently. Now, as far as workout detection, all of these allow you to start workouts manually in the app, or you can just start doing workouts and it'll just track it automatically. Fitbit, I found, did probably the best job of this. It detected a walk while nobody else did. I was walking around for like 25 minutes, so it wasn't a really long walk, but Fitbit tracked it and showed me in the app. You can adjust the sensitivity on Polar for how many things you want it to track, like only runs, for example, and more intense workouts, or every single little walk you do. That is adjustable in Polar, so maybe I could have made it more sensitive and the Polar would have picked that up. But Fitbit does claim to learn from your habits. So yesterday I played basketball, for example, and I didn't start it manually, but it tracked it. It tracked it as some session, and then when I opened the app later, it said, what was it that you did? And it suggested like 5 or 6 different things. One of them was basketball, so it did have an idea that I was doing that, unless it was maybe just coincidence. But it's supposed to learn from your habits, and then in the future, if I play basketball at a similar time, it's much more likely to just automatically identify that as basketball. As I've worn Whoop for about a year now, usually it does a very good job at detecting things like golf or different workouts or walks, although sometimes it does detect things like a little erroneously. So I play guitar, and sometimes it would record a whole session of playing guitar and save it as like badminton or weightlifting or something, and it's kind of funny. It shows up on Strava, and then you have to go back and change it to like, well, musical performance is actually a workout on Whoop. Whoop has a very, very large library. We'll dig into the libraries later of different workouts available. But let's get into sleep tracking. Most people are wearing these, in my opinion, probably to track your sleep. And this is so interesting. Starting off with the sleep scores on these. Now, this graph, you're looking at 2 different things. One, we're going to look at on the left side here and on the right side. I was at home. It was tracking my sleep scores very normally. I think most people, most of the time, that's the situation that matters. The middle, though, on this day right here and on this day right here, I was traveling. So international travel is very interesting with these different devices. Starting off with when I was at home, though, you can see on the bottom, I don't know if you guys can read that, green is Whoop, light blue is Fitbit Air, dark blue is Amazfit Helio, and orange is Polar Loop. So Polar took 2 days to actually start showing me a sleep score. They really like to calibrate. You'll see that later as well. But otherwise, fairly consistent. Whoop was a little bit more generous in the beginning, but they trended down, they went up. Like, it was really consistent. A better night was higher score, worse night was lower score in all of them. So I think that was quite impressive. The difference is over here, once I got back, I think Polar, Whoop, and Amazfit all did a pretty good job showing that I was getting better. I actually got sick when I was traveling. I mean, time zones, no surprise. I came down with a cold, and I was recovering for these like 3 days right here. And so I think Whoop did the best job of showing that I was getting better and it was improving every day. Amazfit was somewhat level, so I don't totally agree with that. Polar was a little bit more harsh with the scores for sure, but also getting it correct. And the Fitbit, I think their sleep score prioritizes sleep duration much more than your heart rate variability and how well you actually feel. So I'm a little skeptical of the sleep score on Fitbit, to be honest, because it gave me a very high score here, and I did not feel good that day. I just slept a lot longer than I probably should have because I was recovering from a cold. So that's normal sleep scores. Traveling then, this is really interesting. So this was a big travel day, and I was flying from Ohio to Japan. And you can see Whoop and Polar just said you didn't sleep at all, which is not true. I slept for probably 4 hours on the plane, and that has to count for something. And Amazfit is the only one that accurately really detected this and recorded it and gave me a sleep score of like 45, which I think was very much deserved. I think that makes perfect sense, and that's a big plus for Amazfit. The Fitbit kind of got confused because when you fly west like that, you cross the international date line, so they didn't really know when to allocate the sleep, and I think Fitbit mixed up the 18th with the 19th and gave my sleep to the wrong day. I think this should be over there because it gave me a 0 sleep score the next day when I was actually in Japan. So if we kind of shift this over here and imagine it was there, these are all showing a very similar sleep score once I'm in Japan. Same thing over here, fairly similar, a little bit higher on the Fitbit and Amazfit, but I don't really think that's a huge discrepancy there. But this was another travel day right here, which again, I think Whoop and Polar gave me a better sleep score than I deserved. I was really tired. This was a red-eye flight coming back to Texas, and Amazfit, again, did a really good job here. I think overall sleep scores, Amazfit has to be the winner in this category. As far as sleep duration goes, again, you're gonna have a really similar story here. When I was at home, the left and right, the middle was a lot of travel. So at home, again, Polar took 2 days to really calibrate on sleep, but they were all fairly accurate. They really nailed it with when I went to bed and when I woke up. The difference is when I was traveling, again, Amazfit got this perfect and the others really didn't. Once again, Fitbit, I think, switched the days for sleep. They all got it right here if you slide this dot over. Otherwise, they were giving me zeros when I was flying, and I definitely slept for about 4 hours there. And then over here, this was an absolute hibernation when I got to Texas. I was sick. I think I slept for like 11 hours. It was the longest I've probably ever slept in my life. And Polar just didn't really credit me with that much sleep. So that's definitely a little bit of a drawback with Polar. And once again, I think Amazfit absolutely nailed it. This was a travel day, so I had like 2 days in one. Like I don't know, time zones are weird. Amazfit did a good job on this as well. Heart rate variability, I'm gonna ignore the middle here because I think you guys know the story of traveling and stuff like that. But over here you can see consistently, and over here, Fitbit was giving me the lowest heart rate variability. And that really matters a lot in detecting how well you feel in the morning. That's kind of your recovery score, as many of them call it, or readiness score, as Fitbit calls it. And then Amazfit and Whoop were pretty much lockstep everywhere else. I think that they seem to be very good. Lastly, we have resting heart rate. Now, this is something that could potentially be affected. I was wearing multiple devices on the same wrist, and I was a little bit worried about this, but looking at the actual data, they almost all agreed perfectly, with the exception of Fitbit, which was consistently a little bit higher for resting heart rate at night, and that may just be a different way of calculating it, as opposed to just the lowest heart rate. Maybe they're looking at the lowest average heart rate over an hour. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it, but it makes sense that it is consistently offset. I'm okay with that as long as we have consistency among these, which we pretty much do. Also, nap detection I think is fairly important. Amazfit does a really good job at detecting naps. It detected every single nap I took on a plane or whatever. Whoop also did a really good job of this. I would say equally as good. It often tracked them a little bit longer than Amazfit did, so maybe even more accurate here, but they didn't always show up in the app, sometimes for several hours later. Fitbit also did track some naps, and perhaps in a month or two of it actually learning me, it may get better, but I would say on normal nights, Fitbit, Amazfit, and Whoop all did a really consistent job. Polar did seem to struggle with sleep tracking, but when you're traveling, without a doubt, Amazfit, I think, did the best, and Whoop was very close in second. It did an excellent job as well. It just got really confused with those time zones, like I said. Also, Polar and Whoop both ask when you wake up, it'll say, hey, are you done sleeping? You can tap on yes. That way it's not going to, like if you get up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom or get water, whatever you're doing, it's not going to like split it into 2 different nights, as sometimes Fitbit has done. It hasn't happened to me, but I've seen reports of it happening, and it's sort of happened to me, but it usually revises itself and fixes it later. Moving on from sleep to recovery, Whoop has what they call the recovery score. I find it's very accurate with how I feel in the morning. Amazfit has biocharge, which seems a little bit less relevant in my experience. It's not so much like a recovery. I mean, it kind of is, but it's a lot more like Garmin's body battery, where it shows you what you wake up at, and it kind of tracks throughout the day how much energy you're actually losing. I like this a little bit less than body battery because it feels like it almost always had me starting the day with like 75, regardless of like the absolute worst travel days versus the best days. So not my favorite. Fitbit has the readiness score, which I felt was overall very relevant, although when I was really sick for like 4 days, I was getting better every day and it always just had me stuck at like 15. So I don't know if it's just less granular or maybe I just got used to bad sleep when I was sick. But otherwise, I think the readiness score, I like what they're doing there. It makes a lot of sense to me. Polar has nightly recharge and A&S charge. To be honest, it's not really as intuitive as the other ones. I think that having like a recovery score makes a lot more sense to me. Okay, so let's take a look at the apps. Starting off with the overview page, each of them has like a home page here. Fitbit shows you some very useful things at the top, like your weekly cardio, your steps, and this is gonna be based on what you value, so you can customize this. There's also 3 different screens here. You can swipe between them. Overall, I really like this. All of your data at a glance at the top. Then you have the ability to log things like your weight, for example, and you can start a workout. Going down, this is the part I don't really like about this, is there's just like a lot of AI paragraphs, to be honest. Like you really have to read a lot here. So you scroll down and it's like a sometimes very insightful summary of your workout. But if you scroll down, it just has a summary of your sleep and then a summary of a different workout. And you just keep scrolling down. It really is very, very wordy in my opinion. And occasionally they have like a random graph here and there that feels a little bit, it just feels too AI generated in my opinion. I wish we had more charts like the top, or maybe the summaries were just a little bit more small or collapsible. Looking at Whoop, you can see you've got the 3 rings across the top: sleep, recovery, and strain. Easy to see. It's very digestible in my opinion. You have My Day, which you can tap into everything. So you'll see your sleep, you can see your workouts, different things that are recorded down there. You can see if you have a training plan, and then going down, you just have all numbers down here. And then some charts below that. You can see how your strain and recovery looked. You can see the Discover More stuff at the bottom. I don't particularly use, but it's fine. It's already at the bottom. I think that this is a really phenomenal setup for just a layout on a home screen here. Kind of an overview of your health. Makes a lot of sense. Polar is definitely the weirdest of all of them, where it's like a diary, as they call it. And the more you wear it, like the more things show up here. They're only relevant like 1 day at a time, so you can swipe between different days, show you different things. But it'll show you like a workout there that was tracked. You can see your nightly recharge, your heart rate, all the data like that makes sense. But you can tap into all of these as well. No like big charts and things. This is definitely my least favorite of all these apps. It just seems just so weird. I don't know why they designed it like this. And then we have the Zepp app. It's not called Amazfit because a company named Zepp, I think, owns Amazfit. So in this app, you've got your sleep, biocharge, and exertion. Instead of rings, they're like this other setup here. I think rings make more sense, but this is just fine. Then you've got some AI insights. I appreciate how small these are, but I also really never read these. You can like tap through all of them and they'll just give you different insights. Going down then, again, very similar to the Whoop app. You can see your activities and then your core metrics. And then you've got some little charts and sliders down here to see, some basic stuff. I like this layout a lot. It's very similar to Whoop, and I think that's actually okay. So that's overview on all of them. Now let's talk about the data accessibility. Like you're trying to really get deeper into different things. You've got 3 other tabs here. Biocharge, you can dig deep into this. You can see your history and things. I think this is actually a really good setup on the Zepp app. Same thing with sleep. You can dig into your charts very well, and exertion is the same way here. The Zepp app overall, big thumbs up on the layout. I think this is pretty ideal. The Whoop app is a little bit different. If you want to dig into your data, there is a health tab, which first of all, I really like this. I think this is phenomenal. I think people who are wearing this for longevity purposes, you're not necessarily training for a race, maybe you are, but if your main goal is like, all right, I just want to make sure I'm healthy and I live long, then this kind of shows you the health span, and they'll say, all right, maybe you need to do more lifting. You should do more like zone 2 cardio. Different things will affect this. And you also have a health monitor there, so you can do, this actually has an ECG on the Whoop, so that's a big benefit that the other ones just do not have. It has blood pressure insights. Again, nothing else in this table has that. Those are huge step ups that could potentially really justify the extra cost of the Whoop. There's also a community tab if you have like a team or friends or family that you want to connect with. And if you go to more, just some other stuff there. But talking about digging into the data deeper, you can tap on any one of those 3 rings. For example, if I tap into sleep, it brings me into all the sleep insights, and you can scroll through a number of graphs and see your history and your trends. Same thing with the recovery score here. You can go down and see trends on that. I really like the layout. These charts are very digestible. They show you the number, nice little shading on the bottom, very aesthetic in my opinion as well. And again, strain, unsurprisingly, does the same thing there. This is probably my favorite app out of all of these. Going back to the Fitbit app, the tide's changed a little bit here. Too much AI, in my opinion, for the Today tab, but if we go over to Health, for example, they've got a lot of charts, they've got a lot of data. I really like the way this is set up. Same thing with sleep, you have a lot of data for that. And then if you go into fitness, you can start a workout, they've got a workout library, so things that like coaches make, for example. You can follow some different programs and workouts, and you can dig into your other recent activity with more charts down there. I think this is really solid. And for Polar, if I dig into, for example, heart rate, I can tap into that. They actually show you some really deep insights into individual nights as opposed to overall trends. So I can look at what my heart rate did throughout the night, and it does have, honestly, it looks like it was kind of coded more like in MATLAB with the chart style, but again, I don't like the Polar app. I really wanted to love the Loop 2. I think it looks so nice, but there's just so many weird parts to this. Maybe some diehard Polar fans could explain why this is set up like this. Maybe you guys really do like this, but generally I think this is not an ideal app setup. Oh, but you could tap into, for example, your activity goal, and they give you like this little clock, this timeline here. This is kind of a cool setup. They show you when different things happen, like your lowest heart rate, your highest heart rate, any activities, when your sleep was. I actually do like this quite a bit. I think that's pretty smart to show it in that setup. But then, since we're talking about the app, if we go into sleep, this is just like the worst app design in my opinion. So the sleep stages, that's common. But as you go down, you get this weird little star chart that doesn't have like an axis that really shows you any meaningful data. For example, if I go down to solidity, moderate solidity, and you can see this chart here, it's like a quarter of the way through. Like, what is that? But what is 0 and what is 100 on that? It just says usual levels over here and some less than usual. Is that a lot less than usual? Is that a little bit less than usual? I have absolutely no idea what the axis is here. It's completely unmarked. And the same thing goes for continuity, actual sleep. It shows me 92% is my average, 90% is what I have. But like, why even show that chart if you're gonna, like, that doesn't look like 92% to me. That looks like 50%. So I just think that the charts, like these little bar graphs here, unfortunately, just not really what I was looking for. Now on Polar, if we tap on the top left, you have a number of other things that you can go into. Most of them are accessible from the diary, but you can go into activity and see all of your recent activities, for example. But if we want to talk about manually tracking workouts, if I tap on start, I could tap on the little circle like the guy running there, and you'll see Polar actually has a huge list of different workouts. It's got to be well over 100 here, different workouts you can do. And so if I'm going to do, for example, water skiing, I can tap on that, I say done, and then I can simply tap start. And then on this tracker, it shows you where you are on the map. You see your heart rate. You've got these 5 little colors here. I actually do like that. It shows you like your heart rate zones. You've got your speed, calories. Again, this is gonna change based on what workout you're doing, but you've got duration, and you can swipe between 3 different pages. And I think this is overall a pretty solid setup. I think this is pretty good. I can pause this then, and it'll show me a little summary right now, and I can either continue or I can stop it. If I say stop, I actually have to press and hold stop for that to happen, and I can choose if I want to save it or delete it. I really appreciate that. Most of these do this, but you'll see Fitbit, for example, does not. So if I want to start a workout on Fitbit, I can tap on start. We've got a lot of workouts to choose from, not quite as many as Polar, and I think this is really interesting. Someone pointed this out online. They did like a big, like, Steph Curry collab with this. And yet, when you go to start a workout, there's no basketball workout. So, kind of seems like, I don't know, maybe Steph Curry does wear this and just does auto tracking, which it can track basketball. Maybe he doesn't manually track basketball workouts, or maybe, well, yeah, he wears it, right? Anyway, for this, let's say we're gonna do a hike. I can tap on hike. It just starts the workout right away. I don't appreciate that. It doesn't like let me, pick my music and get ready. And then the workout screen is very basic. You see distance, steps, heart rate, and elapsed time. That is it. And that's not just hike. If you go to really any type of workout, it shows you very, very little. I like how big the numbers are, which is nice, but another thing I really don't like here, I think Fitbit just really dropped the ball with their workout screens, is if you pause the workout and I stop the workout, I can either end the workout now, or it's like, hey, just kidding, I don't want to go back and I want to continue. But you can't delete the workout. If you accidentally start the wrong workout, it's automatically saving. It's going to go sync to Strava, and you have to go and manually delete it in both locations later if you have Strava set up with this. So I'll say end workout. You can choose how difficult it was, whatever. I'll say it's an easy workout. And then it gives me a summary, which again, doesn't really show me that much. I think Fitbit definitely needs to work on this. On Zepp, I can tap on workout. I can then go down to start a workout. So kind of inaccessible, to be honest, but if you tap on start a workout, they have a pretty large selection of workouts. So I like how these are color coordinated, so you can see like indoor workouts, favorite workouts, running and walking, ball workouts. So otherwise, you can start, let's say badminton. We're gonna start badminton. It lets me get ready and start and shows me the heart rate right now. I can tap on settings and change, do I want alerts for this? Do I want text to speech? And then I can start it. And when you start it, it does a little countdown, 3, 2, 1. And it shows a fairly similar page to Polar. You've got the time, you've got your heart rate zones, but you can't swipe through this and see anything else. You could lock and unlock your screen. You can go to your settings a little bit right here, but otherwise you can pause it. Again, you have to hold stop button to end it, and it doesn't let you choose if you want to delete this either. That's a little bit of a downside. I wish I was able to just automatically delete that. But they do a really good job here, if you tap on the 3 bars, of exporting data. So if you wanted to export this and make a chart like I did, much easier to do on Zepp than it is on the other apps. So the Fitbit, you can do that quite easily as well. Also, on Fitbit, small tangent here, on any workout or anything you're doing, you can tap on the 3 dots on the top right and say View Sources, and Google Health now takes sources from everything and they combine it into one. They're gonna use like whichever is most accurate or whatever your preferences are. But you can say, hey, I only want to see data from, for example, the Fitbit Air. I could do that, and it only shows Fitbit Air data. All right, now in Whoop, if we wanted to start a workout, all we do is tap on the plus, and here you can add different things. You could record your weight and stuff like that. But let's say we're going to start an activity. I can then tap on the drop down, choose from a pretty long list, and they kind of split them between strain, recovery, and sleep. So if I want to start a nap, I could do that. I could start like a recovery thing like acupuncture or breath work or light therapy. So a lot of those like Brian Johnson style things that, like, if you're really into that, this seems to have tracking for all of that. And if you just go to all, there's a ton of things, probably the biggest list out of all of them here. And maybe I want to track walking, for example. I can set a strain target on here. Remember, Whoop is using the strain system. And then you say start, 3, 2, 1, it's gonna start this. And it looks a lot like Polar. Like I said, you've got the heart rate zones in the bottom, your average heart rate, your max, and your calories. And you can swipe over and see a heart rate graph as well. I guess my heart rate's kind of high talking and making this video, but if I tap on pause, I could finish it, and here I could either discard it or save it. That's a big feature, more need to have that. Now, as far as battery life goes for these, all of them have decent batteries. Fitbit and Polar had similar battery life, around 7 days. Amazfit was rated for 10, but I was getting closer to like 8 or 9 days out of this. And Whoop is definitely the longest, especially the Whoop MG here, rated for up to 14 days. And I'm usually getting fairly close to that, maybe 12 days or so. Now let's talk about how these communicate with you. So the Fitbit and the Whoop both have a little hidden LED that if you tap them, it'll blink and show you the battery level. They all have haptic motors, so these are all going to be used at least for alarms. Polar can vibrate for calls, calendar notification, text messages, only if you enable that in settings. Fitbit also has a low battery alert. Amazfit does as well, but otherwise, not really a whole lot they're going to be doing. Fitbit does have a smart wake alarm, so you could say wake me up at 6 o'clock, but actually wake me up to 30 minutes before that based on, when I'm in the optimal part of my sleep stages. Now, what is missing in all of these? What's better on some of them? Well, Whoop has the age estimate, which I find very fun. It kind of gamifies your workout. Like you want to be younger and move that down. None of these track GPS, unsurprisingly, but they all can track, they can all include GPS data in your workouts by connecting to your phone and using your phone's GPS. But Whoop, like I said, has labs, so they include blood test results. They have an ECG, they have daily blood pressure insights, a lot of the much more advanced things. But a big downside that I thought was really weird is that both Whoop and Google Health cannot sync with your device when you are offline. So on a plane, middle of like a 12-hour flight, I just wanted to check these things. You couldn't do it on the Whoop or the Fitbit. I showed you the connected apps. Google Health does a really good job of aggregating data from so many different places, and I could see myself really using it as a hub even if I didn't wear the Fitbit Air. I think that's a big positive. But overall, which of these should you get? Well, as much as I really like the way the Polar looks, for me personally, based on my testing, I just can't recommend it over the other options on this table. If you really want the thinnest and the lightest, and you really like that Fitbit app, you want those AI insights, because sometimes they were really useful. It told me, on a casual walk, hey, we notice you're walking faster than usual, your hamstring injury must be recovering. Then the Fitbit Air is actually a very recommendable device at $99. The Whoop does have a free trial, and I have a link for that down below if you guys want to try it out and just see is it actually worth it for you? You can test it for 1 month for free. They give you a free plan for a month. And I still think for the most advanced athletes and like really health conscious people, Whoop is still probably the best, just giving you some deeper insights for sleep and health tracking. And of course, like I said, ECG and things like that. But overall, my top recommendation, just for the everyday person who wants to track their sleep, wants to track their workouts, wants to do everything very accurately, have a good battery life, not have a big bulky smartwatch on your wrist, I actually have to say the winner of this comparison is probably the Amazfit Helio. The heart rate tracking was the most accurate. The sleep tracking was really good despite my traveling. It's very light and comfortable, and the app is really solid as well. It was great for workouts. You could get a bicep band as well if you wanted to wear it and not even have it on your wrist. Overall, I was very, very impressed with the Amazfit Helio. I just did not expect it to outperform the others in the way that it did. So, hope you found this video helpful. Leave a comment down below. Obviously, everyone's priorities will be different, so you may choose a different band, or there may be a different one that I didn't even include in this video. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm Mike O'Brien, and next, I recommend you watch this video right here, my review of the Fitbit Air.